It's 11:37. Before we took a break, I asked Tony, where exactly did the date August 16th, 1987, where did that prophecy come from, Tony?
Well, first of all, let me look at a piece of my own life that was taking place in 1964. You know, that is a long time ago now. I look back at it. But, you know, what happened with me was I was a very dedicated scholar of the books of Central America and Mexico. And I had been very fortunate in those days to be able to go to Mexico, to Oaxaca. Oaxaca is a valley between Mexico City and Yucatan. And when I reached this valley the first time, I say it was as if I was guided there through all of my life. It was as if I had to be there. Once I arrived, many things in my life started to change. One thing that was very important was that I had lost my father when I was a little boy. He left us. And it put a real dent in my life. I had looked most of my life for my father. Rather than finding my father, I turned up my grandfather, who turned out to be a long-hair Lakota Sioux and a traditional man who knew the Lakota traditions and knew and respected the traditions of other Indian people. It was in that time, through that period around 1964, that I received the flute, and Grandpa died. And he died in St. Francis, South Dakota, with many, many beautiful elders beside him. They say he was using his chest like he did as a drum, and he was singing real softly. And suddenly he stopped singing, and he was gone. Shortly after that, he started to appear regularly to me in my dreams, and they were very, very pointed dreams, directing me. I was in television and living a very down-to-earth, let's say, life. I don't believe that anymore, that it was down-to-earth, but at least I was...
You were living.
Yes, and yes. I had a good job with beautiful people that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
Piece by piece, that started to leave. And if you remember 1964, 1965, we can remember the Kennedy,
yes.
What happened,
yes.
And then the chaos, the war in Vietnam, and all of the children that I knew and had known were now either putting on uniforms or headed for Canada, or they had grown beards and smoked pot and hung out in the plaza in Santa Fe or somewhere in Denver. And the world was crazy. And I seen what was happening. And I could see in the television station where I worked what was happening with the news. And I continued to think about the Indian people, both in Dakota and in Oaxaca. And I thought of the warmth that I received to them and from them, and how I felt something from them that was really lasting. And my time became their time. I wanted to serve the people. I wanted to be a part. I didn't want to be sitting on the fence watching the Indian dancers. I said, hey, what about me? I want to be a piece of it. And by the time that the dreams really became intense, I had decided to fast on a mountain not far from Denver here for 4 days. And in that fasting, I seen something happen that seemed like a nightmare. It was about Denver, and it was tragic. It was tragic what I seen. At the same time, that first night when I came off the fast and off the mountain, I experienced a type of automatic writing. It was very strange to me. It scared the daylights out of me. One thing after another was happening. I was writing a book that was called The Boy in the Tree suddenly. And it was as if something had broken through from my unconscious and was saying to me, hey, this isn't what you are. You're living a damn lie, Tony. This isn't you. What? Be you. What is you? And I thought, yeah, I'm not a reservation Indian. That's not what I am. I don't even know if the people will accept me. And then the strangest thing happened. I'd come off the mountain. I went to Oaxaca. And in Oaxaca, I had an experience, a spiritual experience, that opened my eyes to another dimension of life. And it was so swift. What happened to me? I witnessed the sacred woman. I witnessed her. No, I've hidden this all my life ever since it happened. I witnessed her, and I witnessed her in a fantastic way. And it truly confused me because I thought she was real, that she was real flesh and blood. And when I checked, I found out that she wasn't,
Yes.
that she had been there. And what she said to me, she said, and she really had said that. I wrote in the story I was writing, the date, it came out as December 16th, 1987. At that time, that was in 1967. Very swiftly, material showed up in front of me that told me, wait a minute, look at the calendar. I examined the calendar closer. I said, what is this happening? Before I knew it, I was doing correlations on time cycles with slide rules and with electronic engineers that I worked with. And the dreams intensified, and soon I had found the date. And then all of the rest of it started to fit into place. And from the most proper books, I mean the most scholarly books, the pieces came to me, and it was like every piece of a puzzle of who Quetzalcoatl is, what the calendar is, all came to me piece by piece, and it was just, hey Tony, don't get in a rush, take your time and put them together. And when I put it together, I was living in a tent. I'd left this whole world of this thing, and I was living in a tent in the winter of 1969 and 70 on the Rio Grande, 5 miles below San Ildefonso Pueblo in New Mexico. Los Alamos, Balm City, was right up on the hill. I made Aztec calendars and would sell them. It didn't seem possible that the same person who had been in television and directing and also been in front of the camera was now living in a tent and keeping the fire going with pinon at night, a little sheepherder's stove I had in the tent, while I wrote. And I wrote the book. When I finished it, I came out, and it was just on pieces of different sorts of paper. And I didn't know it was a book. I don't know what it was. And immediately I met a person who introduced me to a person in Santa Fe. I mean, I was penniless, and I think a little really nutty.
And that's how the book, The Lord of the Dawn, came about.
It happened, listen,
Yes.
the night that the manuscript was typed, a letter came to me that had been delayed 6 months in the mail from Vincent Brown, asking me if I would write the book. I called him that night from the Los Alamos Inn in Los Alamos, New Mexico. He said, absolutely, I'm interested. He said, I understand you're an artist, maybe you'll illustrate it. And suddenly I was an author. Just that fast.